Hey everyone, welcome to Remap. My name is Jared, and today I'll be recapping Season 3 of Remap, the gaming podcast. Now, this season featured the lowest quantity of games I've reviewed, but for sure the highest average quality. Basically, all 6 games I'll be ranking today are A games I would recommend to anyone, and would probably be top 3 during a week or year. Now, these end-of-year rankings are my retrospective on these titles, not a direct copy of my review. So some games age better over time, and I remember them more fondly. And some games I kind of forget about. At the time, I thought they were some great transcendent experience. And then 8 months later, I'm like, well, I don't really know what the heck I was doing there. But as always, these are my opinions and mine alone. Starting off, I wanted to have an honorable and dishonorable mention. This is new to Remap, but I did want to mention these 2 titles because I ended up playing them a lot during the year. Season 3's honorable mention goes to Genshin Impact by Hoyoverse. I started playing this game 2 years ago now, and I am still playing regularly even today. Being able to hop on, play some story, and work on my characters is fun and a really entertaining activity I think I'll be doing all throughout 2024. There are some upcoming characters I'm excited for, so I gotta keep saving my Primo Gems, keep grinding through it. Although, I will say I can't imagine starting this game today. I started during version 2.4 and was able to catch up after grinding for a few months. It's not like I could catch up in a couple weeks. It took months of gameplay. But now that there are 2 whole new regions to explore, good luck if you're starting today. Now, my dishonorable mention is going to go to my most played game of 2023, believe it or not, but not one I reviewed. I don't review multiplayer-focused titles, as that experience is much more variable from player to player, depending on your skill level, if you have friends playing it. It's not really fair, I believe, to rank multiplayer games like single-player games, but Overwatch 2 by Blizzard is a game of all time. This is my dishonorable mention of the year. I think I had an addiction to that game, as I feel like the Greek character Sisyphus, doomed to play the same maps over and over, just trying to climb ranks and failing due to absolutely miserable teammates. This is a game I do not recommend people to try, but if you do play it, and you find yourself being the kind of person who looks at your stats after a loss and says, wow guys, look at the stats, I'm so good, you all were the reason we lost. You are the problem. This is a team game. Try supporting your team next time. But enough of that. Time to get back to some quality titles. Up first, at the number 6 spot, we have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. I don't really have anything noteworthy for this entry, other than why in the world is the final boss so much more difficult than the rest of the game. It's just a solid game from my childhood that I'm happy I was able to finally finish. Next up is probably the most surprising entry on this list, because at number 5 we have Spider-Man 2. This is nothing against the title. I had a great time playing it, and I think it's a must-play PS5 game. It's more so just a compliment to the rest of the games I played this year. And even though Spider-Man 2 was the most recent title I played, it really hasn't stuck with me as much as some of the other entries on the list have, even ones I played, 6 months, 8 months, pushing a year ago. It just wasn't as memorable to me. A fun time, great gameplay, not something I find myself fawning over, thinking about, wow, how incredible it was. But next up, at the number 4 spot, and closer to Spider-Man than the game at 3, is Doom Eternal. a game that I played for the second time during 2023, and I look back really fondly on. I remember it having some of the most enjoyable first-person combat I've ever played, and probably the most critical thing is it's now become a game that I use to describe other titles. Like, oh, this feels like Doom Eternal combat. Not to say that Doom Eternal was the first game to introduce a fast-paced arena-style shooter, that's only been around for 20 plus years. But it's a fairly recent title that really stuck out to me of what the genre should be. It's the kind of game that you can play for 2 minutes and you'll immediately tell, oh, this is something I love. And a game I really enjoyed. Now, moving on to my top 3. Going into this recap, I knew these 3 games were going to be here, but not what their order should be. I really just made a quick gut decision to decide the order, but all 3 of these games could have easily been number 1. The gap between all 3 of them is very small. And at number 3, I'm putting, fittingly, Baldur's Gate 3. A game that, right when I finished it, I was extremely annoyed with Act 3 and the ending, but over time, my criticism has softened quite a bit. I find myself appreciating the gameplay and the story a lot more now, and more importantly, just how much depth is in this game. A lot of the anger at the time of why are they doing my characters dirty has subsided, and I can just appreciate the game as a whole. And I've just started a new multiplayer playthrough with my friends, and I've already come across new characters and quests I completely missed in my first playthrough. I'm really looking forward and excited to creating some new builds and spend another few dozen hours in the world Larian Studios create. And at number 2 is a game with the absolute worst gameplay of anything I played this year, but the best music by a mile. Persona 4 Golden was almost at 1 for me, but I wanted to keep it at 2 just to highlight that I really do prefer Persona 5. You always ask someone that's played the Persona games which one's their favorite. 5 is definitely my favorite. Golden Story just doesn't hold up as much for me, and I don't find myself thinking about the story, the characters, the twists and turns as much as 5. Not to say that it was bad. It's still a wonderful, great experience. However, Heaven from the Persona 4 soundtrack was literally my top song of 2023 on Spotify. Heaven, Heartbeat, Heartbreak, Signs of Love, and Corner of Memories are all absolutely incredible songs that are not only great gaming songs, but they just stand alone. I can listen to these outside of the game and just have a blast. Purely due to this soundtrack, I had to put Persona 4 Golden firmly in my top 3. Gameplay, terrible. Graphics, terrible. I don't understand how I love this game so much. There's that secret Persona magic and some incredible music. But finally, the top spot of Season 3 of Remap, the gaming podcast, is going to The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Just a near flawless title that ended up having the most hours played out of the 6 I reviewed, not counting the honorable and dishonorable mentions. The scale and depth of TOTK is absolutely insane. And I really can't wait to replay it on some upgraded Nintendo hardware. What brought it just barely above Baldur's Gate and Persona was an awesome ending that it really stuck with me as just the perfect way to wrap up a 100-hour experience. Sticking that landing for me is really critical, because when I find myself thinking back about a title, I remember how the game ends way more vividly than the top half, 2/3, even the whole game up to that ending. If you stick the ending, I'm probably going to love it. And finally, the last thing I'd quickly like to comment on were the 2023 Game Awards. As I played through Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, and Tears of the Kingdom, I think I'm allowed to have a pretty substantial opinion. And I know I had Zelda as my top game of the year, but I completely understand and agree with choosing Baldur's Gate 3. It's just such a unique title and genre that I'm glad to see get some of the limelight. You know, for me, it was pretty much a 2-horse race between Baldur's Gate and Tears of the Kingdom. Spider-Man was awesome, great title, but I thought it was just a slight tier below the other two. This is probably just due to the length of the game and amount of content. Nothing against Spider-Man 2. Great game. At the end of the day, all 6 games I reviewed this year, I recommend you all trying out. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You have been listening to Remap, the gaming podcast. My name is Jared, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.